Divine Feminine Awakening. Reclaim your goddess power, heal your feminine wounds, and radiate magnetic energy to attract the love and life you desire. By Aurelia Voss. Introduction. The clock on the wall of the quiet bedroom ticked with a heavy, slow thud. It was 1887, and for Charlotte Perkins Gilman, every tick felt like a step toward a cliff. She had exactly 1 hour of mental life allowed per day. That was the rule. Her doctor, the famous Silas Weir Mitchell, had been very clear. She was to live a life that was as dull as possible. She was not to touch a pen. She was not to read a book. She was not even to brush her own hair if she could help it. The doctor called it the rest cure. He told her that her nerves were tired because she was trying to do too much. He said women were not built for thinking or creating or having big dreams. If she wanted to be a good wife and a healthy woman, she had to stay still. She had to stay quiet. She had to stay small. Charlotte sat in that room, staring at the walls. The wallpaper was a sickly, faded yellow. As the days turned into weeks, the silence began to feel like a weight on her chest. She could feel her inner fire, the part of her that loved to write and think, slowly turning into cold ash. She knew that if she stayed in that bed any longer, she wouldn't just be rested. She would be gone. The woman she really was would simply vanish, replaced by a ghost who did what she was told. She had to make a choice. She could follow the rules and lose her soul, or she could break the rules and find her power. One night, when the house was silent and the clock was still ticking, she reached under her pillow. She pulled out a small stub of a pencil and a scrap of paper she had hidden away. Her heart was racing. If she was caught, they would say she was mad. But as she began to write, the weight on her chest started to lift. She wasn't just writing a story, she was fighting for her life. She was reclaiming the part of herself that the world tried to put to sleep. She eventually wrote The Yellow Wallpaper, a book that showed the world how dangerous it is to tell a woman to stop being who she truly is. Charlotte didn't need a rest cure. She needed to be awake. She needed to be whole. The invisible prison. You might not be locked in a room with yellow wallpaper today. You probably aren't being told by a doctor that you can't read a book. But if you are holding this book, you might feel a different kind of locked in. Think about your typical Tuesday. You wake up before the sun is even fully out. Your brain is already running a mile a minute. You think about the emails you didn't answer. You think about the laundry that is sitting in the machine. You think about the person you are dating who hasn't texted you back, and you wonder if you said something wrong. You spend your whole day doing. You are the fixer. At work, people come to you because they know you will get it done. At home, you are the one who remembers the birthdays and the grocery lists. In your relationships, you are the one who does the emotional heavy lifting. You try to make everyone happy. You try to be perfect. You hustle because you were told that if you just work hard enough, you will finally feel safe. But as the sun goes down and you finally sit on your couch, you feel a strange hollowness. You are exhausted, but you can't sleep. You have everything you were told would make you happy: a job, a home, friends, but you feel like a phone battery that is stuck at 1%. No matter how much you rest, you don't feel recharged. This is the modern-day rest cure. Instead of being told to stay still, we are told to never stop moving. We have been taught that our value comes from how much we can produce. We have been taught that if we want love, we have to earn it by being low maintenance or by fixing the people around us. We have spent so long living in our masculine energy, the energy of logic, control, and constant action, that we have forgotten how to use our feminine energy. We are like a bird trying to fly with only one wing. We are working twice as hard, but we are just spinning in circles. We are wounded achievers. We are successful on the outside, but we are starving on the inside. The call of the divine feminine. There is a part of you that remembers a different way of living. It's the part of you that feels a spark of joy when you see a sunset, or the part of you that just knows something is true without having to prove it with a spreadsheet. This is your divine feminine power. For a long time, the world has tried to tell us that this power is weak or irrational. We were told that softness is a flaw and that intuition is just a guess. But that is a lie. The truth is that your feminine energy is the most magnetic force on the planet. When a woman is in her divine feminine power, she doesn't have to chase. She attracts. She doesn't have to control everyone around her to feel safe. She trusts herself so deeply that she is safe no matter what happens. She doesn't mother her partners or try to fix them. She shows up as a goddess who knows she deserves a partner who is already whole. This book is not about learning a new skill. It is about unlearning the things that have kept you small. It is about breaking the cracked vessel of your old life, the one that leaks energy every time you try to please someone else, and building a new life where you are the radiant sovereign. By the time you finish these pages, you will know how to stop the hustle without losing your success. You will know how to heal the mother wound that tells you that you aren't enough. You will know how to use your body as a compass to guide you toward the love and life you actually want, rather than the one you think you should have. Why this path works. You might be thinking, this sounds nice, but I live in the real world. I have bills. I have a boss. I can't just sit around and be a goddess all day. I hear you. This is not a book about escaping your life. It is about changing the frequency of your life. Think about a radio. If you want to hear jazz music, you don't try to fix the rock and roll station. You just change the dial. Most of us are trying to fix our lives while staying on the same tired, burnt-out frequency. We try to find a better boyfriend while still acting like a fixer. We try to get a better job while still believing we have to work 80 hours a week to be valuable. The divine feminine is the frequency of being. When you shift into this state, the doing becomes easier. This isn't just wishful thinking. It is based on how our brains and bodies actually work. When we move out of survival mode, that constant state of stress and fear, and into thriving mode, our intuition gets sharper. Our bodies get healthier. Our presence becomes magnetic. I have seen women go from being completely invisible in their careers to being the leaders everyone wants to follow. I have seen women who were done with dating suddenly attract partners who truly see them and cherish them. They didn't do this by trying harder. They did it by returning to their true nature. A mirror of your journey, Alina's story. To help you see how this looks in a real life, we are going to follow someone named Elena Rodriguez. Elena is 34 years old. She lives in San Francisco and works as a senior marketing manager for a big tech company. On paper, Elena is winning. She has a beautiful, minimalist apartment that looks like a magazine. She is highly competent and hyper-organized. Her boss loves her because she never says no. But it is 8 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday, and Elena is still at her desk. She is staring at a spreadsheet, and her heart is racing for no reason. She feels like she is vibrating with a nervous energy that she can't turn off. She just ended a 3-year relationship with a man who was on again, off again. She spent those 3 years trying to help him find himself. She was his therapist, his cheerleader, and his assistant. When they finally broke up, she didn't feel heartbroken as much as she felt empty. She had given so much of herself away that she didn't know what was left. As she looks out the glass wall of her office at the city lights, she sees her reflection in the dark window. She doesn't recognize the woman looking back. The woman in the window looks tired. She looks like she is holding her breath. Elena has a secret fear. She is afraid that if she stops doing, she will disappear. She is afraid that if she isn't helpful, she isn't valuable. She feels like she is a cracked vessel, trying to fill everyone else's cup while her own is leaking out the bottom. Elena is at a breaking point. She realized today that she can't live like this for another year. She can't even live like this for another day. She is ready for her awakening, even if she doesn't know what that word means yet. As we go through this book, we will walk with Elena as she learns to put down her masks. We will watch her face her shadows, heal her wounds, and finally step into her power. You might see a lot of yourself in her. The map of the journey. The path to your divine feminine awakening is not a straight line. It is more like a spiral. We will move through different gates of power, just like the ancient goddess Inanna did in the stories of old. The remembering, we will start by looking at why we forgot our inner fire in the first place. We will look at history and our own lives to see where the masculine took over and where the feminine went into hiding. The descent, we will go into the shadows. We will talk about the things we usually try to hide, our victim patterns, our martyr habits, and the mother wound that keeps us from feeling worthy. The pillars of radiance, we will learn the actual habits that build magnetic energy. This isn't about beauty tips. It's about presence. We will look at how women like Josephine Baker and Hedy Lamarr use their energy to command a room without saying a word. The sacred vessel, we will return to the body. You will learn how to listen to your gut and how to stop holding your breath. We will look at how to turn your body into an oracle that tells you the truth. The sovereign union, finally, we will look at how this changes your relationships. We will move away from toxic attraction and toward conscious partnership. You will learn how to be a queen in your own life so that you only attract people who are ready to treat you like one. We are going to meet some incredible women along the way. We will learn from Hildegard von Bingen, a mystic who found power in her greening spirit. We will see how Cleopatra used softness as a weapon. We will even look at how Madame C.J. Walker built an empire by refusing to let the world define her worth. This journey is about more than just you. When one woman wakes up to her power, she gives every woman around her permission to do the same. The world doesn't need more wounded achievers who are tired and angry. The world needs radiant sovereigns who are led by love and intuition. The clock is ticking, but it's not a countdown to a rest cure anymore. It's a countdown to your new life. The yellow wallpaper is starting to peel away. The cracked vessel is ready to be mended with gold. The woman you were always meant to be is waiting for you to find her. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Why have we forgotten our inner fire? In a dusty corner of a museum in Philadelphia, there is a small, round disc made of stone. It is over 4,000 years old. On it you can see a woman with a tall, fluted headdress. She is standing behind 3 men, but she is clearly the person in charge. Her name was Enheduanna. She lived in the ancient city of Ur, in what we now call Iraq. She was a high priestess, a princess, and the first person in human history to ever sign her name to a piece of writing. Thousands of miles away and thousands of years later, a woman in a glass office building in San Francisco stares at a computer screen. Her name is Elena. She has a high-paying job, a beautiful apartment, and a calendar full of meetings. On paper, she has everything. But as the sun sets over the city, she feels a strange, cold emptiness in her chest. She is successful, but she is exhausted. She is doing everything right, but she feels like she is fading away. At first, these 2 women seem to have nothing in common. One lived in a world of clay tablets and desert stars. The other lives in a world of fiber optics and lattes. But they are connected by a single powerful thread, the fire of the feminine spirit. Enheduanna knew exactly where her power came from. She spoke to the stars and led her people with a sense of divine right. Elena, like so many women today, has forgotten that this fire even exists. She has been taught that her value comes from her to-do list, her productivity, and her ability to keep everyone else happy. The story of how we got from the stone disk of Ur to the burnout of the modern office is the story of a great forgetting. It is the story of how a natural, radiant power was slowly traded for a life of hustle and fixing. But as Enheduanna discovered when her world fell apart, that fire cannot be truly destroyed. It can only be buried. The priestess and the usurper. In the year 2285 BCE, Enheduanna was the most powerful woman in the world. As the daughter of King Sargon the Great, she was appointed as the high priestess of the moon god. This wasn't just a religious title. She managed the city's grain, settled disputes, and wrote hymns that people would sing for centuries. She moved through the city of with a quiet, magnetic authority. She didn't have to shout to be heard. Her power didn't come from doing more than everyone else. It came from her connection to something bigger than herself. But then everything changed. A man named Lugalin decided he wanted her power for himself. He staged a coup, a sudden takeover of the city. He didn't just want her job, he wanted to break her spirit. He drove her out of the temple and into the harsh desert. He stripped her of her royal robes and her headdress. He tried to silence her voice, telling her she was nothing without her title and her father's protection. For a long time, Enheduanna felt the weight of this loss. She was alone in the sand, her vessel cracked and leaking. She had been a queen and now she was a ghost. Most people in her position would have given up or tried to fight back with a sword. But Enheduanna did something different. She turned inward. In the darkness of her exile, she began to write. She didn't write about her anger at the man who stole her throne. Instead, she wrote to the goddess Inanna. Inanna was the queen of heaven, the archetype of the feminine in all its forms, beautiful and terrible, soft and strong, creative and destructive. Enheduanna poured her grief, her rage and her hope into a long poem called The Exaltation of Inanna. She wrote, "I am the high priestess, I am Enheduanna." Through her words, she reclaimed her inner fire. She realized that Lugal-An could take her temple, her robes, and her gold, but he could not take the divinity that lived inside her. Her power wasn't something given to her by a king. It was her birthright as a woman. When she finally finished her poem, the story goes that the gods heard her. The usurper was defeated, and Enheduanna was restored to her position. But she didn't return as the same woman. She returned as someone who knew that her true strength was internal and unshakable. The Great Disconnect. We live in a world that looks a lot like the one Lugal-An tried to build. It is a world that values the masculine traits of logic, competition, and constant action above all else. We are told from a young age that if we want to be safe and successful, we have to lean in, grind, and make it happen. We are taught to treat our lives like a business and our bodies like machines. This is what we call the Great Disconnect. It is the moment when we stop listening to our intuition and start listening to the clock. For most women, this happens so slowly we don't even notice. We start by skipping a meal to finish a project. We stop dancing or painting because it's not productive. We stay in relationships with people who drain us because we think it's our job to fix them. Eventually, we become wounded achievers. We are high functioning on the outside, but we are running on empty on the inside. We operate out of fear of not being enough, fear of losing control, fear of being seen as too much or too emotional. We have traded our lunar nature, the part of us that is cyclical, intuitive, and flowing, for a linear life that demands we be the same every single day. This isn't just a personal problem, it's a historical one. Over thousands of years, the divine feminine, the idea that the feminine spirit is sacred and powerful, was systematically removed from our culture. The temples were torn down. The stories were changed. Women who trusted their gut were called crazy. Women who owned their power were called dangerous. We have been conditioned to believe that to be powerful, we have to act like men. But as Enheduanna showed us, true feminine power doesn't look like a sword. It looks like a flame. It is magnetic, not forceful. It is about being so fully that the world is drawn to you, rather than you having to chase the world. Alina's discovery. In her minimalist apartment in San Francisco, Elena Rodriguez was feeling the full weight of the Great Disconnect. She sat on her velvet sofa, surrounded by expensive things she barely had time to enjoy. The silence of the room felt heavy. To escape the feeling of not doing enough, she decided to clean out a closet she hadn't touched since she moved in. Tucked away in a box of old college textbooks, she found a leather-bound journal. It was from 15 years ago. As she flipped through the pages, she didn't recognize the person who had written them. The younger Elena wrote about the way the fog looked rolling over the hills. She wrote poems about her dreams of traveling to the mountains of Peru. There were sketches of wildflowers and notes about how she felt electric after a night of dancing with her friends. That Elena was vibrant. She was messy. She was alive. The current Elena felt a sharp pang of grief. She looked at her hands and realized they were always busy, typing, scrolling, cleaning, organizing, but they never created anymore. She had become a fixer. She fixed the problems at her tech firm. She fixed her sister's schedule. She had spent 3 years trying to fix an ex-boyfriend who was never going to change. She realized her life was like a beautiful, expensive vase that had been dropped. It was still standing, but it was covered in cracks. She had been trying to fill her life with more work, more likes on social media, and more responsibilities, but it all just leaked out through the holes. She was a cracked vessel. In that moment, Elena didn't see a way out, but she saw the truth. She hadn't lost her fire. She had just built a very efficient, very professional cage around it. She realized she couldn't live another day as a ghost of herself. She decided, right there on the floor of her closet, that she was going to find that girl in the journal again. She was going to find out what happened to her inner fire. The archetype of Inanna. To understand the fire Elena was looking for, we have to look back at Inanna, the goddess Enheduanna loved so much. Inanna wasn't a nice goddess. She wasn't a mother figure who just sat and waited for her children to need her. She was the queen of heaven and earth. She was the morning star and the evening star. Inanna represents the balanced feminine. She knew how to be soft and sensual, but she also knew how to go to war when her kingdom was threatened. She was completely unapologetic about her desires. In the ancient myths, she didn't wait for things to happen to her. She made them happen by being so magnetic that even the other gods couldn't say no to her. Most importantly, Inanna is the goddess of the descent. One of her most famous stories tells of her journey into the underworld. To get there, she had to pass through 7 gates. At each gate, she was forced to give up one piece of her royal clothing or jewelry. By the time she reached the bottom, she was completely naked. She had lost her crown, her necklace, and her robes. She had lost her masks. This is exactly what the process of awakening feels like. It feels like a loss. To find your inner fire, you have to be willing to let go of the things you use to define yourself. You have to let go of the good girl mask. You have to let go of the perfect employee mask. You have to let go of the I don't need anyone mask. Like Inanna, many of us are terrified of being naked. We think that if we aren't doing or helping, we have no value. But the mystery of Inanna is that she only found her true, indestructible power after she lost everything else. When she returned from the underworld, she was more powerful than ever because she knew that her essence didn't depend on her jewelry or her throne. The internal spark. So where is this fire now? If you feel like Elena, exhausted, invisible, or just done, you might think your fire is gone. You might think you are just a person who is tired all the time. But that is a lie the modern world tells you to keep you quiet. Your inner fire is your vital energy. It is the force that makes your heart beat and your ideas flow. It is the part of you that knows without a doubt what is right for you. It is your gut feeling. The problem is that we have buried this spark under layers of shoulds. I should work late so my boss thinks I'm dedicated. I should say yes to this coffee date, even though I'm exhausted. I should look a certain way, so people will find me attractive. When we live a life made of shoulds, we are pouring water on our own flame. We are trying to fill a vessel that has holes in the bottom. Every time you ignore your intuition to make someone else comfortable, you create a new crack. Every time you push your body past its limits because you're afraid of being lazy, you leak energy. Reclaiming your fire starts with a simple, radical act, acknowledging that you have a soul-level hunger. This isn't a hunger for food or money. It is a hunger to be seen as you really are. It is a hunger to feel vibrant and alive in your own skin. It is a hunger to stop chasing and start attracting. Locating your source. In the ancient world, people didn't have to be told to connect with the divine feminine. It was all around them. They saw it in the phases of the moon, the changing of the seasons, and the birth of new life. They understood that life isn't a straight line, it's a circle. To find your fire today, you have to look for the greening power in your own life. This is a concept we will explore more later, but for now, think of it as the things that make you feel lit up. Think back to a time when you felt completely yourself. Maybe you were a child climbing a tree. Maybe you were lost in a book. Maybe you were dancing in your kitchen. In those moments, you weren't doing anything for anyone else. You were just being. That being state is the fuel for your fire. When you are in a state of being, you are magnetic. Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to glow? They aren't necessarily the most beautiful or the most successful people in the room, but you can't help but look at them. They seem comfortable in their own skin. That is because they have stopped trying to fix their vessel and have started sealing it. They have stopped letting their energy leak out to everyone else and have started keeping some for themselves. The reframe: your fire is not a task. Most books about self-improvement will give you a list of 10 more things to do. They will tell you to wake up at 5 a.m., drink green juice, and meditate for an hour. But if you are a wounded achiever, the last thing you need is more tasks. If you treat your awakening like another project to manage, you will just burn out on spirituality too. The fire is not a task. It is a presence. Imagine you are standing in a dark room. You don't need to do anything to make the sun come up. You just have to wait, and eventually the light will fill the space. Your inner fire is like that sun. It is already there, behind the clouds of your busy life. You don't need to build it. You just need to stop blocking it. We have forgotten our inner fire because we were told it was dangerous. We were told that a woman who is lit up is too loud, too emotional, or too difficult. But the truth is that a woman who has reclaimed her fire is the most helpful thing in the world. She doesn't give from a place of depletion or guilt. She gives from overflow. When Enheduanna wrote her poem in the desert, she wasn't trying to be productive. She was trying to survive. She was trying to remind herself of who she was. And in doing so, she changed history. Your awakening is not just for you. Every time a woman stops hustling and starts radiating, she heals a little bit of the great disconnect. Every time you choose your intuition over someone else's opinion, you seal a crack in your vessel. You are not a machine. You are a sovereign being, with a spark of the divine living inside you. The path back to that spark is not a map someone else can give you. It is a lunar compass. It is a feeling in your chest, a pull in your gut, and a warmth in your heart. It is the voice that whispered to Elena as she looked at her old journal, and it is the voice that is whispering to you right now. You haven't forgotten how to be powerful. You have just forgotten that your power doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are when you finally stop doing everything else. The fire is still there, beneath the ash of the to-do lists and the shoulds. It is waiting for you to notice it. It is waiting for you to breathe on it. It is waiting for you to let it burn. Chapter 2: The Descent, Facing the Shadow of the Wounded Feminine. In a small, cold room in the year 1141, a woman named Hildegard sat perfectly still. She was 42 years old, and for most of her life, she had been keeping a secret that felt like a fire inside her bones. Since she was a young girl, she had seen visions, bright lights, and strange symbols that told her things about the world no one else seemed to know. But in the Middle Ages, a woman with a voice was a dangerous thing. So Hildegard did what many of us do when we are afraid of our own power. She stayed quiet. She pushed the fire down. She tried to be good and small. Then her body simply stopped working. She wasn't just tired. She became paralyzed. Her legs wouldn't carry her, and her arms felt like heavy stones. It was as if her soul had decided that if she wasn't going to use her voice, she didn't need a body to carry it. This was her decision.